Hi there. So I've been teaching myself to code for the last over 15 years now. I started, YouTube came out when I was like in middle school and I just honestly hit the ground running, blessed with the internet, figured out how to code. Here I am. I'm 27 now, CTO of a small finance gig. I've worked with, I don't know, maybe a dozen startups off and on the last 10 years in various consulting, full-time roles, and never went to college the whole time, just sort of always obsessively Googling things on my computer. Always have done that, and ChatGPT is what we're obviously here to talk about today. I apologize for the clickbaity title, but dude, if I had ChatGPT when I was starting out, when I was 10, 11, 12, just picking up coding for the first time, wanting to make video games, I couldn't even guess where I'd be today. It is such an accelerator in learning how to code. And so what I wanted to do today is just show you how I'm using ChatGPT to continue growing today, how I'm using ChatGPT to write code really fast. As, a senior developer, CTO, I'm not sort of in the phase of wrestling with syntax and questioning things on sort of a moment-to-moment basis in coding. And so ChatGPT does a lot of the sort of grunt work for me. And, quite controversial in, are we getting replaced by AI? I don't know. But as someone that just loves coding, ChatGPT enables me to code like crazy fast. And I just want to show you some of the techniques I'm using both to continue sort of teaching myself to code and then how I'm using ChatGPT sort of professionally and personally on the projects that I work on every day. Okay, so this is Plumber, is what I'm calling it. It's a program I started on a couple days ago, wrote like 90% of yesterday, and essentially what it is, or what it started out as, was a sort of PM2 style process manager. PM2 is a process manager for Node. It reads a configuration file and daemonizes Node processes, restarts them when they fail, stuff like that, and writes all the logs to like a centralized place. I wanted something that was like a little bit more generic and not Node.js focused, something that could sort of take a configuration file, run processes on any machine, and glue their standard input, standard output, standard error to another process on another machine via TCP socket, and then also run this thing that I'm calling the Lake server, which is like a endpoint to collect all the logs from all of the processes running in your like distributed Plumber system. Put them somewhere you can query them. And then collect system stats, a couple other things, but generally just wanted like a high level, I don't even know what it is. That's kind of the point, is I just use AI to sort of paint. I'm sketching, I'm just drawing, I'm just jamming. I don't know what's going to come out, right? But it's starting to turn out really cool. And so this actually works. It's about like 1,200 lines of Rust, something like that. And I'll just quickly show you what it does. It takes in a TOML file that defines some configuration. This is that like log collection server I was telling you about. This JWT thing, I was getting crazy. I'll show you that in a minute. Run Lake server, run system stat logger, just configures a couple tools that I've thrown in Plumber, and then it takes some processes. So to test, I've got this little Node.js server, which I also just asked ChatGPT to generate for me, which just opens up an HTTP server on port 3000 and importantly logs out when it gets requests. So I'll just go ahead and run this guy real quick and show you what happens. So boots up, does a bunch of stuff. That Node.js server, like I said, on port 3000, if we just go ahead, I already had a tab open, refresh a couple times. Cancel that. Should have written all my logs to this test log dir. Sweet. I can go ahead and like look at the log for this thing, right? Boom, there's all its standard output. This is like some system stat collection, stuff for collecting memory, CPU, disk usage, whatever. So who knows? Is this thing ever going to see production? I don't know. I don't care. But I was trying to learn about how to build like a good redundant system that uses write-ahead logging and will queue messages in memory if the collector endpoints go down and sort of guarantees delivery. Just, always trying to sharpen the axe, right? Just systems level programming is sort of the weakest area of my game. Started my career in front end, got into back end and some data stuff. Somehow ended up writing some like C and assembly crap, whatever. I've been all over the board, but here we are, right? Always got to know what the weak areas of your game are and upskill. And that's one of the things that AI is just like my on-demand personal freaking tutor for. And it's so cool. So let's take a quick look at my Git log here, my progression for getting this done, ignoring my amazing commit messages. So first commit for this guy was 3 days ago. Started as something completely different. At some point I scrapped it in here, but all of these are hundreds of lines of code getting just dumped in from ChatGPT. So we'll jump over to ChatGPT and I'll show you, I've got the history up for the last 2 days or so of all the sort of queries that I was asking it. And it's important with ChatGPT to ask it the right way. And okay, so this was one of the first conversations for the actual like logging module, which I've ended up calling Think, I think, in my code base. And the first message I sent to it, let's read it. Can you write a Rust module that will have a public thread-safe API where the user can queue log messages, string payloads, and it will queue them and flush the logs to a TCP endpoint, guaranteeing order and delivery and safely queuing messages if the remote server fails? So really high-level requirements, but one thing that I really want to stress and highlight here is that I just asked it to write a Rust module. When you try to get ChatGPT to consider a bunch of different files and recommend changes across a bunch of different files, that's where it breaks down and becomes really not useful very quickly. And so as much as possible, try to ask GPT to do one thing if you can. And here we're obviously asking it to sort of come up with an idea, right? I was like, is literally all I sent it was these couple sentences here of, I want one module that does this thing, right? And it's a starting point. So, it gave me some stuff, whatever, but then we get down to the code. So not bad. I mean, it kind of did what I asked it to do. Let's take a look at how the implementation actually ended up. If I go to that sync module, make the font a little smaller here. So renamed a few things, whatever, but it does end up looking, quite a bit differently. There's a lot going on here. What is this message sender thing, right? It's a multi-producer, single consumer queue from Tokyo, whatever, right? Looks quite a bit different, but the bones, as you can see, are largely there. So as we sort of evolve the code that ChatGPT gives us, we'll kind of see. I think I did a lot of it in this conversation, but here we go. I was like, okay, wait, so how much overhead is involved with like opening and closing the TCP connection every single time, right? And it said, opening and closing a TCP connection for every message incurs significant overhead compared to keeping a consistent socket open. Awesome. Okay, I knew that, but I was just like, I always question myself, right? Of like, is it, or does Linux, take care of a lot of that? Is it, how much more or less overhead is it? But it's right. I kind of forgot about the little TCP handshake that happens, and ChatGPT does a great job of like breaking that down of like, there is overhead and here's why, right? You have that network latency of doing the handshake. And if I was opening a new socket on every time I flush the logs, that is not in the spirit of building a high performance system, right? So I got some code, I asked some questions about it, and now we're going to ask it to start fixing things, improving it, right? So I said, hey, let's see what I read. Please rewrite the Rust module to keep a persistent TCP connection open to the collector. Add function for reconnecting if it dies, and it should attempt to reconnect, blah, 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 whatever, right? So it says, okay, here's what we'll do. And it starts giving me changes. So at this point, I think, so ChatGPT made the decision to move over to that MPSC queue, right? Like, I could have probably arrived at that being the right answer if I sort of put more thought into it. But the point of this, what I'm trying to show you, is that you can just let ChatGPT drive with a lot of that and almost look at it as sort of like a tutorial that's unfolding specifically for you to build the thing you want. And it also just gives you all the code for it, right? Like, if we are going to be automated by AI, and I do think AI is going to continue to get significantly better at writing code, ultimately, we still need to sort of be the arbiters of quality of what actually makes it into the code base, at least in the next 5 to 8 years. Who knows once we reach AGI, right? But in the meantime, I think this is just an awesome way to sort of grow your skills and just build things freely, quickly, right? This is no longer a huge commitment, right? Within just asking ChatGPT for this first module, asking it to do an iteration, right? We're pretty close. Where's my code? To where we're at, right? I mean, I could go back and look at the Git history and figure out exactly what I fixed, what I changed, but the bones are there, right? To go from what ChatGPT gave me to what my sort of end module ended up being was a very fast process, right? Again, 1,200 lines of Rust code in a day from ChatGPT. Whether or not it's good Rust code, that doesn't matter, right? I can change things, I can fix things. If I had to do this for work, this was going into production, I could at this point just start switching gears into a little bit less loose and fast, more really thinking through every line, figuring out things. And ChatGPT is very helpful with that too. Send it a chunk of code. What are the things I'm not thinking about? What are the cases in which this could fail that I'm not handling, right? ChatGPT does a good job of answering those questions. It, maybe a third of the time it's like pretty generic responses, but it's sort of a starting point for you to go then run and Google with, right? And like, the big sort of caveat with ChatGPT is it's confidently wrong often. And that's where I'm a little bit hesitant to really just tell like someone that's brand new to coding to just dive in with this sort of technique. But at the same time, like you're gonna have to go through that of like, why didn't this work? ChatGPT is recommending packages that don't exist. Start Googling things and figuring things out, sort of, I guess, the old school now way. But it's another tool in the tool belt, and to write it off or to just turn your nose up at it because, oh, we're getting replaced by AI is whatever. All that aside, for the love of coding, I could not have written 1,200 lines of Rust. I'm not a great Rust developer. I'm learning, right? This is something I want to get better at, but I could not have done this in a day and had a system that actually works that I can play with. I deployed it on a couple servers and it was working, This idea I had for what if I rewrote PM2 in Rust and it did all these other things, right? Was awesome. So, and just to like continue with that, I was like, okay, I've got this like server, like what if it had a JWT server and implemented a little bit of auth and had like a key value sort of Firestore style database in it too, that these processes could communicate with to sort of automate another aspect of cloud infrastructure for me. And, here I am with a 200 some line state module that wraps this SLED database. And again, ChatGPT wrote most of this and I was just fixing stuff, right? Some of these functions aren't even used because I'm still just painting, right? Just sketching, just jamming, just trying to get stuff on the wall that sticks and break things, right? Paint myself into corners and try to get out of it and improve. Like that's how you get better. And that's what ChatGPT is really good at is, I don't know, a lot of people when they're new to coding get stuck of like, oh, I don't know what to code. I don't know what I want to program. It's like, just have any idea, have ChatGPT give you sort of the skeleton. And then it's just like paint by numbers, fill in the functions that it screwed up, whatever. And that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. It really helped me out if you subscribed. I got a lot of content in the pipeline all about how I'm getting creative with computers. It also really helped me out if you downloaded my app Goated. It's a tracker for tracking your journey to 10,000 hours tracking a skill with live activities, widgets, all that kind of stuff, built on Expo for Android and iOS. Gonna be doing a ton of videos all about that as well, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, catch you next time. Thanks. I also made the soundtrack on my Nintendo Switch, and I tracked my time making music on Goated, working towards 10,000 hours on quite a few things.